Hello, fellow law-abiding firearms owners. Thank you very much for attending the second installment of the Ladies Gun Show, where we are exploring the world of firearm ownership. With me is Richard, my husband. Say hello, Richard.
How you doing?
So today we're going to be talking a little bit more about a variety of topics, actually, and current events. We're going to be talking about the I hang up on this all the time. It's the Brevard
County Gun Rights Preservation Forum. The big
Thank you very much. I'm glad you wrote that down
I
earlier.
did.
Because I left all my notes at home because I was in a rush to get here because somebody didn't want to be late. And we weren't late, but I forgot my stuff. So big stack of papers, lots of work this morning, and it's all at home for me to look through and see what I missed at the end of this
Well, anybody who's worked
broadcast.
with me on the range knows that early is early. Early is like on time is late. So we're good.
All
We're
right.
here.
Well, I'm glad I don't work with you on the range. Hence why I do the classroom inside.
That's it.
Otherwise, it just wouldn't look good to students if we're sitting there battling out on the range.
That's it.
And we both have firearms. All right. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about that forum because Richard and I were in attendance. There's a lot of really cool things that were said, things that are very interesting, perspectives, the approach that our Sheriff Wayne Ivey has on the Second Amendment sanctuary cities. We have a video clip. We're trying to get that uploaded right now. And if we can, I'd love to share that with you because you're really hearing it directly from him. I guess that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems I have is whenever I'm listening to news that I end up with somebody else interpreting what the facts are for me. Don't tell me, just give me the facts. Let me decide what it is that I want to see or I do see in this. Because maybe I'm just not as smart as you, or better yet, maybe you're not as smart as me. Don't tell me what these facts are. Or don't tell me what your conclusion is, right? Just give me the facts. Let me come to my own conclusion. So really, that's what we're going to be trying to do all the time here. Let's see, we're going to be talking about the Texas, or actually the thwarted Texas church massacre that did not happen. It was the attempted massacre.
Yep.
And the reason why it didn't happen and why it, a lot of people lived. And it
As well as the response from the politicians on this thing, because some of them are mind-blowing. I mean, we've got a lot of supportive type things, but we've also got politicians out there who, if they had their way, and expressed that if they had their way, the situation would have turned out far different.
Well, you know what? And the biggest voices are coming from the anti-gun people. Mm-hmm. And why do these people have such large voices? Why are they giving so much more airtime and so much more exposure to actually the population, the American population?
Well, it's who owns the media. It's the media sources. You follow the media sources, they all go back to a few people. One of which is running for president right now and funding the whole Virginia mess.
And people need to be kind of like, open your eyes to this, folks, because as easy as it was, years ago, I remember listening to the news, coming to my own conclusion, and I trusted the news. Walter Cronkite, okay, yeah, I'm that old. But he would report the news, and then you decipher what it is that you needed to take out of it and what your takeaway was. Then you have a discussion about what your takeaway was compared to what your neighbor's takeaway was. And then you kind of like exchange ideas and thoughts, interpretations. And I really think that that's a much healthier way to come upon making your decisions, especially who you're going to vote for. I really try not to make this a political forum. This is our podcast. It's a gun rights and exploring the world of gun ownership. But I'm telling you, one of the things that's most important is the fact that if we are not paying attention to what's going on in our legislature, we're not going to have a world of firearm ownership.
Mm-hmm. The whole gun issue is very political right now. We cannot step away from the politics of it because we're talking about very clear lines in the sand that are being drawn, not just in Virginia, California, New Jersey, but right here in Florida. We're going to go into some bills later on. I want to cover those. We have a lot of bills in the legislature right now that are going to be voted on. The period of reviewing these for our legislators has already started. So we're going to cover some of them, and they're mind-blowing what they're trying to do here. And it takes what's happening in Virginia, brings it to Florida. It takes what's happening in California and magnifies it and brings it to Florida. So we need to be aware of this, because even some of our politicians that we've been talking to are not even aware of some of the bills that are out there and they're trying to push through. And they're the ones going to be voting on it, and they don't even know what's in there. So we'll be hitting that later, but...
Yeah, I mean, this is all important stuff. It's things that you need to be kept aware of. You are free to research any of the facts that we share with you here on this show, and we'll be more than happy to tell you where we find these facts. We're not going to be skewing things, but we're going to be giving our own personal opinions, and that's where we get into our legal disclaimer. And we've got to make sure that we share that with you every time. Okay, we are going to touch on a lot of legal issues in this episode, and unless otherwise stated, we want you to know and be very clear that we are not attorneys. We will discuss our observations and impressions and opinions on this show. We encourage you to seek your own legal We encourage you to seek your own legal advice from a bona fide attorney who specializes in gun laws. But we are going to let you, we'll be more than happy to share with you where we're getting our sources so you can see it for yourself, because I understand that you don't want to have me drawing conclusions and feeding it to you, because that's just happening a little bit too much in the media today.
And a lot of what we're talking about, if there's links that need to be shared in places where you need information, go onto Facebook to Florida 2A, because I share a lot of the stuff out there. I put links there, and there's about 4 announcements now in the announcement section right at top that's going to tell you how to reach your legislators, what kind of tactics to use, what to ask them. So go there. We're trying to use that as a resource to share information. If you need any of that information and it's not out there, put a post out there. I'll respond to it, and I'll get the information you need.
And during this show, if you're listening to us live, feel free to pop up a message up on our Facebook page, and we've actually got it on a big old monitor up here. We will be more than happy to answer your question or address your issue or just read your comment. I'll be more than happy to give your comment here too. So please just don't hesitate to interact with us. We really want you to. We really want to hear from you, because this is informing everybody. If we're missing a spot, overlooking something, come on, just give us what you're thinking. You're welcome to do that. And I think we should probably break and regroup and come back. What do we have? We're starting to get our quarters here kind of mixed, but are established here. So we'll be right back.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
Hey, this is Trisha Schmalhofer, hostess of BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, and Mystics. This podcast is all about seeking knowledge, talking to experts, changing perspectives, channeling wisdom, and shifting consciousness. Listen as we invite a different badass guest each time from a variety of career fields who are living their purpose, spreading light, giving strength and hope, and changing lives every day. We stream live on Facebook, so like our page, interact with us, and watch the behind-the-scenes action. Find BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, and Mystics on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts under Space Coast Podcast Network. BAM!
Welcome back to our show. We started introducing a few topics before the break, and one of them I want to talk about. It's not really old news right now because it's very relevant, and it happened since our last podcast, and it ties in very heavily to a lot of the things we're talking about today, and that's what happened in Texas. The shooting in Texas, and the good guy with a gun who fixed a situation that could have been very, very bad. and the response that some of our politicians had as well. This is a prime example of what can happen when disaster strikes, but there's somebody there who's well-equipped, well-trained, and capable of taking care of the situation. We had a guy who is a known felon, a convicted felon, who there's not a law in the world that would have stopped him from owning that firearm that he had because he wasn't legally able to own it to begin with. So you can put every gun law that we're talking about and the legislators talking about in place. That guy still would have had a gun, still would have been in the church, still would have been trying to kill people.
I actually read an article where that guy actually, his mother pleaded with the judge who repealed. Hang on, let me back up. I want to say it was one of the states, I think it was New Jersey or something like that, where he had actually had a firearm or a gun
Yes.
violation. Okay, so he actually had something on his record that would have, it was a felony with a firearm, and it would have prohibited him from purchasing a firearm or legally accessing a firearm in any other state in the country. But the judge chose to expunge this charge. So the problem is why did the judge do this? Okay. In addition, his mother actually pleaded, according to the article I read, his mother actually pleaded with the judge and said, listen, we need to have some psychiatric intervention here. He's just not quite right. There are some problems here. So, some people will say, oh my goodness, red flag law, this is the perfect time. No, it's not. It's already in a judge's hand. This judge actually chose to say, you know what, I'm going to just kind of wipe this out. It was beyond any
red flag law. He was charged.
He was already in the system. He was already in the system. It was cleaned up. He was let go. He is somebody who needed mental health evaluations, if not some serious assistance. And then he moves to Texas and he accesses a firearm. Whether he bought it at a gun store or whether he bought it on the streets or whether he broke into somebody's house and stole it, all those things happen. You cannot legislate evil. You cannot legislate criminals because criminals don't follow the law. And that's where we are, law-abiding gun owners. And this is our problem. And it's the wrong solution, and I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No,
Go ahead,
that's fine.
Finish where you were going, but that just burns me up.
So the bad guy having the gun's unavoidable. That was there. It happened. It would have happened either way. The good guys having the gun is only because we have the Second Amendment, and the laws have not been changed to squash and step on our rights. Now, when it was brought forward to, who was it? Pocahontas Warren there. And
yes.
the other one, Bloomberg, who owns half the media that we listen to or try to avoid listening to. When it was brought forward to them, their opinions on it, their thoughts in town halls and interviews, what did they say? The people who used the guns to save the lives of everybody in that church that day should not have been able to have a gun in there.
Yeah, because regular people shouldn't have guns.
Right. And Warren even went so far as to say that, because there was a gun in there is why this happened. Well, yeah, but it wasn't brought in legal there, and not one damn thing that she would have done to the laws, would have prevented that from happening.
Guns are here.
Right.
Guns are here to stay. No matter what your laws are, no matter what laws you pass, there are going to be guns in attics, hidden all over the place. I'm not going to start revealing where people are saying that.
Guns. You got the guy with the machete who's out there stabbing people too. You got a guy who killed 26 people before with a knife in Japan. I'm telling you, it's not about just the guns, but they're making it the guns.
I don't know why they're doing that, other than, and I know this sounds sinister and it kind of sounds a little bit, paranoid, but I got to tell you, there's got to be an underlying reason why they're attacking personally owned firearms as hard as they are.
There's a bigger agenda, a much larger one. When we get into the bills that we're talking about, some of these bills parallel what's happened at previous stages in history. And I got a perfect example that I came across reading last night that I knew about that I'm going to talk about that happened in the 1930s in Germany. What we're doing today mirrors what's happening there. The end result could be the same if we're not paying attention. So there is definitely a repeat of history that aligns with the same type of agenda they had then. They have it now. There's an agenda out there much larger because the facts prove it. Firearms in the presence of citizens reduces crime, reduces violent events. It's not just an assumption. The stats show it. Even the FBI, who there's a lot to say about them today that we won't because of what's happening in the political situation and where their alignment is. Even their research shows that the presence of firearms actually reduces crime. You look at all the states that have constitutional carry. crime rate's much low. You look
Well,
at this.
I'm going to
Go
jump
ahead.
right in here. Okay. So, folks, if you're on the fence and you're not quite sure, should citizens have firearms? Maybe, they're onto something. I am really scared of guns. And of course, it's natural for us, and really do a little self-analysis here. It's natural for us to be afraid of something we don't understand. If you don't understand guns, it's very easy to support laws against them. But
what's scarier? The bad guy with the gun, or the gun itself? Put yourself in those pews in that church in Texas. Now, all these laws went through. Bloomberg's right. Pocahontas is right. Everybody's right. We can't have guns. This guy comes in with his shotgun. Nobody in there's got a gun. What do you think the odds of you getting out of that church are alive?
yeah.
So what's scarier, this guy with the shotgun, or the fact that somebody legally has a gun, is trained with it, knows how to use it, has been sitting next to you all along in church and you never even knew it, and it has the capability of saving your life?
So what about people who aren't trained to use guns? So should we say, regular, like they're saying, regular people shouldn't own guns, or ordinary citizens? So how do you define an ordinary citizen, and how do you define, and I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. How do you define an ordinary citizen as, okay, you're capable of owning a gun, you're not? How do you decide that?
And the Second Amendment makes no definition regarding who can and can't own a gun. You're an American citizen, you can own a gun. Mm-hmm. It's a right, and it even goes beyond the Constitution. The right to self-defense, to preserve your life, to preserve the lives of those around you and your loved ones, is a human right. It's got nothing to do with legislation. The Constitution recognizes that. You can't stomp on it. It's recognized because it needs to be recognized, because everybody wants to stomp on it. And if the Second Amendment wasn't included in the Constitution, we'd be just like a lot of the other countries around now. We would have nothing that would even recognize that we have that right to begin with.
So now I remember maybe a year or two back when they were just starting to push for this gun control, and we were starting to see these little grassroots things popping up, and then ban assault weapons now and all of that. So how do we? Totally just lost my thought. I'm sorry. I do that.
That's okay.
I do that a lot. I'm going to start writing down, and of course that was in my notes with my little pen. I'm going to start writing this stuff down because it's come to me twice while you've been talking, and then my whole thing just kind of pops out of my head. It's going to come back, I promise you, and I'm going to share it with everybody. So why don't you just go on and continue?
Okay, again, going back to who can and can't own guns. Everybody can own guns. I mean, granted, there's going to be situations where people are deemed unfit, but that is a real scary area to start going into. Our legislators are attempting to go into that. They're attempting to go into it, and we'll talk about one of the bills that has to do with everybody with a concealed carry weapon needs an evaluation. We're going to talk about that. But right now, if you're a convicted felon, if you're a criminal, if you've got a record of doing something, you lose your rights. Now, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you don't have a criminal record, you're not a convicted felon, you're not a violent person who's trying to hurt innocent people, there is absolutely no reason why your rights should in any way be restricted, because you are not a threat to society. If you're a threat to society and you've proven yourself to be one, that's one thing. But if you're just a law-abiding citizen who's trying to keep yourself and your family safe, there's absolutely nothing that should be put into a legal form or any other form that's going to restrict you from owning a firearm.
So, and it's come back to me, okay, so I wrote it down here. Okay, so common sense gun laws, all right? You've got people who say common sense gun laws. So if you don't understand what you're voting against or what you don't want, then you say, well, I'm going to tell you what's common sense. And these are people who are taking information that other people are digesting and regurgitating. And
exactly.
That's it. So these common sense gun laws, I remember back, a year or two ago, when the big push was, we want common sense gun laws, but we don't want to take your guns away. Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
We don't want to take your guns away. I don't know what you people are fighting for and why you guys are overreacting, because gun owners were overreacting and everything. Okay, so now let's go to Virginia. Okay, and in Virginia, let's watch Virginia. Scary stuff. We talked about this last episode. But in Virginia, they don't want it, right? They've been saying all along, we don't want to take your guns away. Holy cow. Do you have some of the laws that are passed?
It's ridiculous what
Virginia,
they try to do there.
I think it's very clear to even people who lack common sense, and those are the I lack common sense gun laws. And you just got to put that in there. It's I lack. Because common sense is going to tell you that the guns guns in the hands of civilians do work. Yes, there are accidents, but with anything else, there are accidents. People have access to alcohol, and some people don't use it properly. They abuse it. They cause an accident. Cars, same thing. So with guns, we got to put it in the same pot. It's an accident's happened, but the thing is more people are protected, more people are saved, more people live and are alive today because of common citizens having firearms.
Well, Virginia is getting really hot because they're taking a culmination of all the laws around the country and kind of putting it into one pot, kind of like Florida is. Florida is definitely following their model or attempting to follow their model. And you got Bloomberg throwing $500,000 in there, and you've got all these other funders coming in and all these anti-gun groups coming in.
Tell me some of the Virginia laws. Tell me some of the Virginia laws that people who aren't really into this all the time, they're taking care of their kids.
Right. Well, one of them is they're banning what they call assault weapons, which is like what Florida's trying to do.
Ban assault weapons now, right?
Their definition of assault weapon includes pretty much every gun that you ever have, every pistol you've ever owned, except for a 5-shot revolver.
How is that?
They're talking about magazines.
They're talking about big black guns. Again, devil's advocate here. They're talking about those big black scary guns, the AR-15s, those weapons of war, which are not weapons of war.
The definition of an assault weapon that they're using covers the little Marlin 22 you shot squirrels with as a kid that has a magazine in it that holds more than 5 rounds, holds more than 10 rounds. Some of them hold 20 rounds. It covers your pistol that now holds more than 10 rounds. It covers any firearm capable of taking a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. Well, that's pretty much every magazine except a 5-shot revolver.
So let's not confuse this with magazine sizes. So like California, they have a maximum magazine size of 10 rounds. Okay, but now this law in Virginia is a gun capable of holding a magazine. So that means that you could get an aftermarket magazine for your firearm, which means that now deems that firearm capable of holding that much.
In typical sheep fashion, that's what's happening in Florida too. That's one of the laws that they're trying to put into place. One of the bills that's out there. If the gun is capable of handling a magazine more than 10 rounds. It don't matter if you own one or can even buy one there. If it has the possibility that somebody could make one and put it in there and it would work, you can't have that gun.
And this is stuff that people who are just like your general average person who's thinking that they're voting for a common sense gun law is actually they're doing more harm to themselves and future generations as well as their
it gets
citizens
worse, though,
in their area.
Because it's not just the weapon that they're using, but they want to ban ranges. They want to ban your ability to train with a firearm.
I heard about that. That's in Virginia. That's Virginia. Now, how is that we don't want to take your guns if all of a sudden you have to be you can't operate a shooting range where people can practice unless it's
state-owned.
State-owned. So wait a minute. That doesn't sound like a common sense gun law. So it sounds to me like they opened the door to let in some common sense gun laws, and the next thing that happened is they flooded in all of this scary gun confiscation type legislation. And it's sitting there right now, aren't they? They're talking about that right now, aren't they?
Right. They're actually, it's the 13th. They start talking about it. They're going to start voting on some of this stuff. So what they're doing is they're going to an extreme so that if they only get 50% of what they ask for, that's still an absolute enormous extreme amount of restriction upon your personal rights. They're going to totally ridiculous, and so that people say, well, we won this and won that, or it was a compromise here. But it's the compromises that kill you. The compromises are what's stepping on your rights. It's a death by 1,000 bites, except they're taking many, many steps just in that compromised state that they're shooting for. That's going to totally squash your ability to defend yourself.
Yeah, one of those laws passing is too many.
It's disaster.
And again, they're just going to continue to keep coming back. And what we're learning is that the Democrats are not the only ones who are supporting this.
Right.
So let's bring some of this. Are you finished talking about Virginia and their legislation? Let's bring some of this to Florida because, hello, folks, it's time to wake up because there are bills and supporting mirror bills in both the Senate and in the House that are going to scare the heck out of you. And this is right here in Florida. We're no longer talking about Virginia.
Okay. I've got kind of a list of all the bills and kind of descriptions of them. There's a few of them I want to share that's really important.
And we're going to make this available on our website too.
Absolutely.
So you guys, you can look at it, look it up yourself.
Now, first of all, there are 42 gun bills in the legislature in Florida right now. 42 of them. Okay, of those, 5 of them are pro-gun. And actually, I wouldn't even call them all pro-gun. And let's go through them. So, of the pro-gun style bills, we have HB 183. Notice it's a House bill. It came out of the House that enables elected officials to conceal carry in meetings. Not people attending the meetings at the government buildings and that, but the elected officials.
This is a pro-gun bill,
This is a pro-gun bill. This is
isn't
as pro
that
as
nice?
it gets. Right.
Okay.
We have HB 273, which is the absolute best one going. It's constitutional carry, permitless carry for the state of Florida. If you're not a criminal, you can carry a gun. You don't need a permit. And they will issue a permit in order for you to get reciprocity with other states if you need it. But you don't need a permit to carry it with that one.
We really need to go in that direction in order to stop a lot of these other smaller, and you're going to be reading those, the anti-gun bills in Florida.
Oh yeah, I've got 2 pages
But I'm
of
going to
them.
tell you, and this permitless carry or the constitutional carry, meaning you're protected by the Constitution, the Second Amendment. You can
Right.
carry a firearm.
If you're a law-abiding citizen, there's no reason why you can't have a firearm.
So if this was such a, oh my gosh, this is frightening, this is horrible, as much as a lot of anti-gun people play it, then where are our law enforcement officials, the people who are sworn to protect us as law-abiding citizens, and these people who will do and say what it takes in order to keep us safe? So where are they speaking out?
Well, every LEO I talk to is in favor of law-abiding citizens holding firearms. I mean, they know that they're a reactive element in society. But what I mean by that is they can't do anything until something happens. The problem is that something happened. So that something happened and you were on the receiving end of it. You're now a victim. You had no ability to stop that from happening. And now they need to pick up the pieces. And that's how it works. And they know that. They can't get there fast enough to help you to stop it from happening to begin
And
with.
think of it this way. Okay, so shots are fired. Somebody calls law enforcement. Well, hello. The shots have already been fired. Whatever's going to happen to you is currently happening to you, and they are coming as fast as they can to save you, and you were unable to defend yourself. We need to start making it so that we can be our own first line of defense, where we don't have these restrictions by our Florida government of where we can and cannot carry, or whether or not we can carry subject to the approval of somebody who's in a position who may want to have ulterior motives, like what's going on in Virginia. Oh, we really don't want to take your guns, but you know what? Now that we have access to control your access to a concealed carry permit, I think we're going to raise that bar a little bit higher. And I think that that's a big problem. And
I mean,
among
even
other things.
statistically, 3 to 7 seconds is when everything happens. Look at Texas, right in the middle, 6 seconds. Okay? Everything happens in that amount of time. There's no way law enforcement can get to you fast enough unless they're already in the room waiting for it to happen.
And our law enforcement officers are not speaking out saying this is terrible, this is unsafe, this is going to change our culture. Make note of this. They are not saying this, but there are people who are anti-gun, people who lack common sense and want common sense gun control. These are the people. To me, that feels like that's not common sense. If my law enforcement officer, my Sheriff Wayne Ivey, is not opposing the general population of carrying and having their own first line of defense, then I think that right there, it's a moot point. It's like, people, make your own decisions. Think for yourself.
Our business deals with or assists people who have been victims of crime all the time. We've got a large percentage of people who walk through the door. They've got stalkers. They've been attacked. They've been assaulted. It happens all the time. And they'll say, we'll hear like, I need a gun. Or I talked to a friend of mine who is a law enforcement officer, and he told me, get a gun.
That happens a lot. Law enforcement sends women to us all the time. And if you're a victim of domestic violence, you have a stalker, you need a firearm. You need to defend yourself because a police officer cannot be there all the time.
And the volume of it is staggering.
It is.
The amount of crime that's happening.
I had no idea.
I've had people walk into the shop. We're down Mint Road in Palm Bay, and they'll say, why do I need a gun around here? Nothing ever happens. Well, look at the stats. There were like 4 murders in the area in the last 8 months.
But the other thing is, if you're not seeing the crime in our area, that's because law enforcement in our area is doing their job.
That's right, keeping it under wrap.
And what they're doing is they are keeping the crime is there. But what they're doing is they're working hard, they're putting their lives on the line, and they are keeping that crime out of our section of society. Okay, and that's important, and that's a difficult job, and we need to support them for that. So don't go around and leave your front door unlocked, because I live in a safe neighborhood, and and there's no crime around here. Yeah, and you're leaving your door unlocked because you're foolish. This is not the day and age where you leave your front door unlocked, because crime and criminals will find a way. You live in a nice neighborhood. Well, heck, think about it. They're going to want to come in and rob your nice things. They're not going to go to the house next door that everybody's living on stuff that, they picked up on the roadside. So, think about this, people. And where you got your law enforcement who are supporting carrying a firearm, please seriously consider this, and please consider not voting against the Second Amendment.
Are you going to listen to the guys who deal with it every day, or are you going to listen to a politician who's surrounded by bodyguards, who lives in $1 million home out in the middle of nowhere, who's fully protected, who says you don't need a gun in your home, and as Bloomberg said, and to paraphrase, you're stupid if you have a gun in your home? So, who are you going to listen to?
Well, that sounds like a lot of common sense to me. You're stupid if you need a gun in your home.
Yeah, publicly made that statement. So, well, he don't have one in his home. He's got them surrounding him. So,
well, this is a guy that we want
president. Yeah,
president. Yeah, he's running for president. Just in case you didn't know that.
Okay.
You hear that name a lot. Yeah.
So we covered two of the pro bills. Okay.
And we're not even on the anti bills yet.
No, campus carry
Okay.
HB 6001.
Nice.
It's a good one, because why have a whole campus full of young people completely defenseless? And we've seen this. Virginia Tech, same thing. Virginia Tech was a client of mine at the time. Everything that happened there was a gun-free zone. And what happened? You had a guy go in there. Disaster. Happened at more than one campus. And because you've got a vulnerable population, so campus carry is a good idea.
Let's just make the young women on campuses really easy victims, because, boys will be boys.
And college campuses are notorious for sexual assaults.
Yeah.
I've worked at college campuses all my life. It's very common. And what do? They put security guards, maybe 3 of them, around the whole campus of a huge 100-acre campus, where they put little stations you can go to and hit a button and call for help. Well, if you call them for help, it already happened. So,
well, let me tell you something. Just last week, Eastern Florida State College sent out an email to their students, and they said that they are permitted to have a firearm in their vehicle. They can have it on the property, but they cannot have it on campus.
Here's the problem. It's in their vehicle. They get out of class at 10 o'clock at night. They got to make it to their vehicle. Everybody knows they don't have the guns inside. They know they can have guns in their vehicle. So where are you going to hit them? Where are you going to intercept them?
I mean, and here we are. We're at the point now where we're celebrating these tiny little victories when really they're really not solving the problem.
Exactly.
And there's so much more that needs to be done to keep people safe. And random guns, and hey, I happen to have a gun in my hand, so I'm going to shoot you just because you took my parking spot. That stuff doesn't happen. No, and there are so many people out there that are trying to scare you into thinking that. And, again, use common sense. Majority of gun owners take it extremely seriously. Mm-hmm. Carrying a firearm and having it with them.
Okay, so we get to 3 of the pro. HB 6003, this is a big one. This is the one that reverses all the legislation that came in after Parkland. So, but it's all grouped into one.
Okay.
Which means it's going to be a battle to even get anywhere with it. And we're going to talk about the battle to get anywhere with it in a minute after I hit the last one. But
okay, because I got something I want to say on that, but I'll hold it if you've got something else to say.
And we do have one Senate bill that can be considered partially pro-gun. Just one. There are others a House. And that is SB 1310, and that is a hunting and fishing sales tax holiday that enables tax-free gun sales. That's the most pro-gun the Senate has come up with. It is the only pro-gun bill the Senate came out with. Now, the Senate has 22 anti-gun bills. Okay.
Wait a minute. Is the Senate supporting any of those House bills, the pro-gun House bills?
Here's the problem. We have 5 that we could loosely say are pro-gun bills. Some of them are definitely pro-gun bills. But it takes a couple of things. One, it takes sponsors. Another, it takes a companion bill in the Senate for a House bill to go through, and vice versa as well.
So how many companion bills do we have for those House bills that are out there that you just read?
Of our little handful of pro-gun bills, there are no companion bills.
So our senators are not stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to back you on this.
Exactly.
So we have a majority of Republican senators right now.
Yes.
Is that correct? We have 4 more senators than the Democrats do. Yet our majority is not supporting pro-gun legislation.
Here's the problem. The president of the Senate, a Republican, is very anti-gun and has received $500,000 from an anti-gun group for his campaigning.
That's nuts.
So it's your Everytown USA PAC. Bloomberg, again, the name keeps coming up, has $500,000 gone to his campaign. So the president of the Senate is pushing anti-gun, even though he's a Republican and supposed to be pro-gun by party lines. Rhino all the way.
Rhino.
Yep. Absolutely. And he's pushing against it. You also got lobbying, heavy lobbying happening with these guys. And I'm not going to get into depth with it now, but there's these groups like Bond and
Ban assault weapons now.
There's even a veterans group that's Veterans for Common Gun Control or whatever.
There's probably 14 members in that.
Right, exactly.
But it's going to be inflated to make it sound like, hey, veterans, you need to kind of jump on board and be one of us responsible veterans. I really think that everything that they've got going on, they're a minority, but the thing is what they have the loudest bullhorns. Mm-hmm. So the rest of us are thinking, wow, they're really loud. There must be a lot of them. And we really need to kind of clear that out of our heads.
Exactly. And what there's a lot of is funding, and that's the problem, and a lot of people pushing for it. You got funding sources that go back to Bloomberg. You even got funding sources that go back to right in our home state of Florida.
How do you know that?
There's
the
a whole thing coming out now. A lot of information's coming out where all of these Born and all these other groups use a common mailbox.
Holy cow.
So the funding sources are big. The lobbying's big. The president of the Senate's pushing for gun control. And even though we have a majority there, we can't get one senator to do a companion bill on any one of, let's say, 4. I don't consider the hunting and fishing sales tax holiday to be one. Any of the 4 legislate. Now, here's the other thing. There's 42 total, right? 5 of them are pro, 1 of them's neutral. We have 36 anti-gun bills out there. Every single one of them has sponsors and it has a companion bill. So,
what the heck?
22 of these came from the Senate. 14 of them came from the House.
So what we need to do is we need to start getting in touch with our senators.
Yeah, because the House would help too. But
I got to tell you. So I went to the Second Amendment forum there. Oh my goodness! Great, say it again for me, Richard. What is that forum?
Brevard County Gun Rights Preservation Forum.
Yep, you had to read that.
I did.
That was on my notes. I left it home. Okay, so we went to that, and you hear all of these people talking about how our senators aren't working for us, and how they're not submitting these companion bills so that the stuff can get out of the House. So the following day, I think it was, I went to a Republican luncheon, and I had an opportunity to speak with Debbie Mayfield, our senator. She was having lunch, right up almost, I wouldn't want to say a stone's throw. I wouldn't throw anything at her. But I'm like, okay, I got to use this opportunity. And I'm thinking, well, all these other women who were at that forum the night before, they're going to want to talk to her too. Like, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you, right? Let me tell you something. I sat there in a room for over 2 hours with 85 women, and not one of them walked up to Debbie Mayfield. So I'm waiting until things calm down, and I'm going to walk over and I'm going to have a chat with her and just ask her, what are you thinking? What are your reasons? What do you have? How are your feelings about a lot of these pro-gun bills that aren't getting sponsorship from the Senate? And Debbie said to me she didn't know about them. She had no idea that there were these, pro-gun bills out there that needed Senate sponsorship. And it was already too late for her to draft anything. And I think that we need to get on board, and we need to get proactive instead of reactive, because our reaction, this pro-gun community, we need to stop reacting, and we need to start getting proactive. And we've got to get into this, talking to these people. Let your senator know. So you always hear that, write your senator, let your senator know. And we all sit back and go, yeah, everybody else is doing that. I don't need to. Or what's even worse is, I'm just one person. I won't matter. Well, let me tell you, I was the only woman who walked up to her at this luncheon. I'm the only woman who talked to her. I had an exchange of emails and information after that. She was very friendly, very responsive. I communicated with her assistant, and I feel as though we have a really nice open channel of communication. People, every individual, if you're going to cast a vote, you need to follow up on these people too. And you need to
and if you don't know how to reach them, again, go to Florida 2A. I've got it in the announcements. There's a way to reach out to them very easily, all their contact information. People do it every day. The anti-gunners do it every day. We need to be doing it.
They're organized. That's the problem, is they've got this organized group of people who are full-time employees, and they're sitting there going, okay, everybody, here's our little call chain, and now you need to send these emails. And you know what? These people are sitting in your senators' offices. These people are standing outside the door, knocking on the door of your representative. Hey, I saw what you did yesterday. Hey, I didn't like this. You said something pro-gun. I don't want you to do that. And let me tell you, they're only human. And if they're not hearing somebody support what's going on and support, hey, I want you to support guns, you're not hearing it, but everybody bellyaches on Facebook, and you go to these forums. Well, they weren't at the forums. Hello. They weren't at the forums. Well, there's no accountability. They're not going to have anybody mad at them. They're going to do some stuff on Facebook. People aren't going to see it. And you know what? They don't have to, because nobody's going to, the pro-gun people, they're going to be pissed for a while. They're going to let it go. And I'm just going to go about my way. But every time these anti-gun people bang on my door, they give me a headache. Well, maybe we need to start giving people some headaches. But I do know one thing that we do need to do, and we need to take a break, because I just glanced up and I saw a lot of comments, and we really got carried away. I want to start reading through these comments, and I want to start bringing this stuff in, and we still have tons more to talk about, folks. So stay tuned, and we will be right back after a few moments.
All right. This is Doug Monda.
This is Karen Monda.
And Chris Hadaway.
And we're the host of Survive, the new podcast brought to you by the Survive First Foundation, a nonprofit organization assisting first responders and their families in need of mental health support due to the lifestyle of being a first responder. So, Chris, tell us what we're going to have.
We're coming to you from retired and active law enforcement officers as well as their spouses to discuss the responder life.
Don't forget, this is an unedited and raw podcast, so we need your interactive suggestions and advice to help us help others.
So find us live on our Survive First Facebook page and join in the conversation, or find us on demand on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you listen to podcasts, from the Space Coast Podcast Network to you.
Are you in the market for a new home? Perhaps you need to sell your old home and downsize or relocate. Hey there, my name is Jesse Hall with eXp Realty, and I offer professional real estate services right here on the Space Coast. Give me a call, 321-877-8737 for all of your real estate needs. Again, 321-877-8737 for all of your real estate needs. Buy, sell, invest with the best. Find out more at 321-buysellinvest.com.
Hey everybody, we're back. We took a brief break. And just want to let you know that if you want to be a sponsor and you want to be shown up on that screen on our breaks, we will be more than happy to talk with you. You can reach out to me, Maria, at ladiesgunstore.com, or you can pick up the phone, give me a call, or leave me a message right here on our Facebook feed. So we're going to be getting back to these hot topics. We're talking about the legislation. Actually, have we even started talking about
we haven't even started the anti ones?
This is the anti-support for the positive ones. And we just kind of totally did a rant here,
So
didn't
what
we?
I'm going to do, because in the interest of time, because I know we're going to run out of time today.
Give me some that should really scare the hell out of gun owners.
Okay.
And these are Florida. These bills are proposed in the state of Florida.
Yep, write these down,
Not
check them
somewhere
out.
else, people.
HB 117 requires a mental health evaluation and a letter to the effect from a professional in order to get your CCW. So you got to go get evaluated and get it documented that they feel that you're capable of handling a concealed carry weapon.
And this is the stuff right now where you think it's innocent enough, okay? Because nobody wants somebody who is a psycho holding a firearm, okay? Just like the guy in the church shooting, okay? I agree with that. Here's the problem. Let's go a little bit deeper.
It's subjective.
Define it, exactly. That's number one. It's subjective. Okay. Number two, it is what doctor in his right mind is going to feel comfortable signing that piece of paper. That doctor cannot go out and see into the future of what you may or may not do, and they're putting themselves on the line. Now, these are whether they're a mental health professional or not, they need to, not for regular people. If this
ridiculous.
person is being released from an institution, this person has a history of some sort of run-ins with the law where they have mental health issues, and a doctor saying, you know what, hey, they're good to release into society, that's something different. But we're talking about general, John Q. Jones and Mary Smith.
Not to mention
need
who's
a letter.
doing it. Yeah. So who's this therapist? Who's this counselor? Who it is that's chosen by the state?
That's
this
even
guy might be
willing
last
to
in his
do it.
class, not have a clue, be anti-gun from the beginning, and think nobody should carry a gun. So bam, no letter.
And that's why we need constitutional carry, because these are they're raising the bar. There are more and more restrictions. Let's tighten this loophole more and more so we can slowly eliminate the people who are able to exercise the Second Amendment in the state of Florida. The answer to this is constitutional carry. We need a companion bill. We need constitutional carry to pass in Florida, and that will be thrown out because it'll be useless.
Right. HB 273, constitutional carry. That's the one we need to push.
That's the positive one. Okay.
Another big one, background check for ammunition sales. They tried this in California. It completely locked up the system. There were law enforcement officers unable to purchase ammo for months because it locked up the system. They want to do a background check on every bit of ammunition you buy.
So this isn't, remember, we're not going back to, hey, we don't want to take your guns. We just want to get rid of those big, scary black guns, right? No, it's not. If we can't take your guns, we're going to take the ammunition from you. We're going to make it harder for you to access ammunition so that your gun is basically not much more than a paperweight or a baseball bat.
Right.
Again, it's another area. They're coming around and they're trying to close in that circle even more in Florida.
Here's the scary part with the ammunition thing. Not only a background check, but record keeping on who bought what ammo. And they're saying we're going to wait until a couple of years before we do it, and the records will remain confidential for 5 years. Well, remain confidential for 5 years. What happens after 5 years? So now they've got a record of every bit of ammo that everybody bought, as well as every gun that you bought.
And what purpose does that serve?
Up.
So, okay, I have 5 boxes of ammo. The guy down the street has 200 boxes of ammo. What purpose does that serve?
Exactly.
If you're a law-abiding citizen, why does it matter?
Exactly. And that doesn't mean he still has it or he's going to commit a crime with it. I go to the range, I'll blow 200 rounds in an hour and a half. I mean, it's gone, sometimes faster.
So what are they going to do? Start rationing ammunition?
They don't want you to be able to train either, so that's another thing. So,
but that's Virginia.
Right,
That's
right.
Virginia, not Florida. Right, you're
far.
not allowed to train in
Right.
Virginia.
So what does that remind us of? So back to 1931, the Weimar Republic in Germany, where they heard that there were people who were planning dangerous things, so they started a registration of everything that was purchased, all guns that were purchased.
Who's they?
They, the government, the Weimar Republic, the people leading Germany before the Nazis.
What country is this taking place in? In Germany. Okay.
Right. So then what happens? 1933, the Nazi Party gets into office, and they take all of those records that, just like, hey, we're not going to open them up for 5 years.
Harmless records?
Right.
That are
and
safe for 5 years.
They start using them. And then they start the gun confiscation. And they went around to all the Jewish communities and they confiscated the guns. And once they had that in 1938...
How were they able to confiscate guns from an ammunition registration?
No, it was a gun registration that they had. But if we have an ammunition registration and a gun registration, if you buy an ammo, you got a gun. It's pretty common sense. Mm-hmm. So now they're going around collecting all the guns. So what happens in 1938? They go around and collect the people. 30,000 people rounded up and put on trains to concentration camps. That same people that they disarmed in 1933.
And there's going to be people saying, oh my gosh, here we go. Now we're comparing, proposed laws in Florida to Hitler in Germany.
Because
and
they're the
rounding
same
of the
laws.
goods. And I really think it's important for us to be learning from our history.
Yes.
And that's what it is you don't pretend that history didn't happen. You learn from it. You watch from it. And I'll bet you money that there's somebody out there who has... this grand scheme of a disarmed America, who's probably following the same doggone rule book because it was proven successful.
Proven successful,
and they were
in countries
able to
all
round
over the
up.
world.
They were able to round up those Jews.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same sets of laws, the same steps they're taking.
So they're following a cookbook. This is a recipe.
Yes, and it's been
so
done
we're
before.
recognizing this recipe in the cookbook of how to take over a nation.
And what is it?
So we're not being
control the
sensational.
media, control the healthcare, control the education system, disarm the people. Now what do you got? You got puppets who can't defend themselves. And that's exactly the steps we've been taking. Look what happened with our educational system. Look what's going on with the fake news media.
Yeah.
All of it. It's a cookbook. They're following it step by step. And now they're trying to disarm the people. Biggest push ever. So
it's not going to be easy.
No. So there's a bigger agenda to this thing. And people think it's a conspiracy theory. Well, keep digging into the history books. They thought it was a conspiracy theory in 1931 as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff happening.
So maybe we're onto a conspiracy. I mean, let's open our eyes to that.
Exactly.
Maybe there is a conspiracy going on.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something. Bottom line is, we really need to be opening our eyes, paying attention to what's happening, and really dealing with the real problems in real ways. And when you've got people out there committing crimes against other people using firearms, and we have a legal system, and those people are getting their crimes expunged and put back on the street, I think that's where the breakdown is.
Absolutely.
So these people need to be going into prison. Maybe we need to invest more money into prisons. Maybe we need more prisons. Let's build them taller. Okay? But we need to keep these people out of society. That's what's going to protect us, not taking away the guns from law-abiding people.
How many times do we read about somebody who's killed by somebody who's already been in and out of jail 4 or 5 times? That's so many felonies.
And firearm felonies.
Yes.
And these people are still out there. Mm-hmm. Do a little bit of research on some of the firearm shootings over in Orlando. I mean, it happens every night, right? Mm-hmm. And see, how many times have those people been in trouble? Are those good law-abiding citizens who are fighting over a parking spot? No. These are people who are criminals. That's their way of life. They have no stops. They have no social boundaries.
And they're not going to show up for a mental health evaluation to get a concealed carry permit to get their gun.
Good point. Good point.
So they've already had it. They failed. So other laws. Well, the background check for ammunition is a mess. The big one, HB 627, prohibits the sale of assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, requires registration if you're going to have grandfathered weapons. And the big thing with this is it's extended to pistols. So, and this is where it comes in like I was talking earlier. If you have a pistol capable of handling a magazine that's capable of holding more than 10 rounds, then it's prohibited under this law. That's every single semi-automatic firearm ever created is capable of doing that.
And that's another thing that, we may be reading into this because we understand firearms and we understand the descriptions. And there's so many people out there who don't understand firearms or descriptions. They hear, oh, big black rifle, those are the scary ones. Nobody needs to have those. And they don't realize that all the fine print on the same law that they're going to vote and that they're attempting to pass is going to reach down so much deeper. Just like the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas legislation. Okay, it sounded... I could see where somebody who didn't understand what they were doing would see, okay, yeah, this sounds good all the way around, but then it had tentacles. And these tentacles messed things up all the way down and through and really infringed on our rights. And that's something that really we should learn from this. Learn from it. You need to be pushing your representatives in the House and in the Senate. Don't accept, don't vote for, don't allow this to happen anymore because these tentacles are built in and they don't understand what they're doing.
Exactly. And the whole gun magazine thing is just a smokescreen too. I mean, the 10 rounds and everything. It's irrelevant how many rounds are in your magazine. Anybody who's ever trained on how to change magazines quickly, you can do it in under a second. Give me 10 magazines, each holding 2 rounds. I can blow through those as fast as almost having one magazine that holds them all. It's not a matter of how many bullets are in the gun or even if the gun's capable of doing it. It's the mental capacity of the person doing it, what they intend to do, who they intend to do it to. It's got nothing to do with what you can do with that gun in your hands. It's ridiculous.
I wonder what's underneath that, because that sounds pretty, well, that's a no-brainer. We can go ahead and vote for that. So I wonder what tentacles are attached to that bill that make it go a whole lot deeper and that infringe in a little bit more of our rights.
Yeah, it goes everywhere.
Any infringement's unacceptable.
You want another one? There's like 40 of them.
Now, you know what? Let's talk really briefly about, we have 4 minutes left.
Okay.
So
I'm going to put this up on Florida 2A.
Okay. Well, you know what we can do too is we can also, our next episode, we can get into some more of these because they're still going to be debated. We're still going to be tracking them going through. So what we're going to do is the ones that we discussed today, we're going to put up on Florida 2A.
Yep.
And then the other ones we're going to revisit them again in our next podcast, which is going to be 2 weeks from today. Let's talk about the forum, the Gun Rights Preservation Forum up in Cocoa that we both attended. Jesse,
we need another one, too. Go ahead.
Jesse, were you able to attend that?
No, I missed it. I felt bad, but I had another conflict.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, there was a lot going on. There were a lot of good things said, and you kind of heard them from the individual. So I had talked to Sheriff Wayne Ivey a while back, and when one of the first counties in Florida declared themselves a Second Amendment sanctuary, and sent him an email, and he called me back, and I said, well, you know, what can we do? I'll do all the groundwork. What do you need from me? I'd really love to see Brevard County be a Second Amendment sanctuary. And he said, we already are. He said, we're a Second Amendment sanctuary inside a Second Amendment state. The Second Amendment protects the entire country. And he said, you know, that's where he's going to go with it. And he also talked about this at the forum. And if Jesse's able to pull up a video, I'd like to go to that because you're going to hear it directly from Sheriff Ivey and what he said to this group of people that gathered. And it was standing room only. I'm telling you, the place was packed. Lots of folks interested.
We got a bandwidth issue. We're absorbing it all.
All right. Well, I'm going to put this up on our Ladies Gun Show page, and you'll be able to see it and hear it for yourself. But Sheriff Ivey goes on to say that, you know, this is what we are. This is who we are. We've always been. And his 1,500 deputies are going to be our first line of defense. So it's interesting to know he is a great man, and we need to be supporting him and whatever he asks for in order to continue to protect us. We need to keep that going.
Absolutely.
He has a very good friend up in Virginia who is also a sheriff, and he's dealing with the horrible things that are going on in Virginia. So he's going to have a heads up on what works, what doesn't work. And I hope that he's offering some support and some great ideas up there too. I think that it's important for all of us to be supporting Virginia in any way that we can, because when that fight comes to us, I'm going to hope that other people from around the nation come and offer us support too, because we're going to need it. I think that our nation needs to pull together, and I think that there are some very dark forces, and they are beginning to really reveal their cards right now.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for tuning in. Do you have anything left that you want to say?
No, I'm
in
good.
closure?
It's actually, I have a million things to say, but I'm going to save it for the next one.
We'll save it for our next episode.
You want to mention your event?
No, we actually canceled it.
Oh, okay.
So, but anyway, we're happy that you tuned in. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry that we didn't manage our time well enough to get to your comments, but we did see them and read them. And I hope that again you tune in again the next time we have our next podcast, and give us your comments. If you have questions, reach out to us beforehand. If you don't want to wait for the podcast, we'll be happy to address them during the podcast. So again, thank you very much. Law-abiding firearms owners need to unite.